My fiance's family ambushed and beat me in my shop over a fabricated lie. My fiance watched. I ignored their $50,000 settlement, gathered the recordings of the assault and the conspiracy emails, and sent the entire family to prison. Justice was served. I'm Marcus, I'm 29, and for a long time I thought my life was heading in the right direction. I built my small auto repair shop from the ground up. I got a good place to live and restored a '68 Camaro with my own two hands, something I was always proud of. About 3 years ago, I met Vanessa Taylor at a car charity event. She was 27, an administrator at a law firm, and had a special knack for getting along with anyone. I was surprised by how easily she talked about engines without needing to pretend. We hit it off quickly, and 14 months later, I proposed to her at South Mountain. She accepted without hesitation. I thought I had found the right woman. However, the engagement celebration at her parents' mansion in Scottsdale should have warned me that something wasn't right. Her mother, Gloria, had that passive-aggressive ability to make you feel inferior while smiling as if she were complimenting you. "It's nice that Vanessa found someone so hard-working," she would comment, examining my hands as if looking for grease stains. "Manual labor is very noble. Not everyone needs a college degree to get ahead." Her father, Ray, was even worse, an egomaniac, convinced that everything he did was worthy of admiration. Talking to him meant listening to speeches about his golf club, his investments, and of course his expert opinions on any topic. Her siblings didn't help either. Bree, 24, had an exaggerated tone of voice that made her sound like she was straight out of a reality show and never put down her phone. Whenever she could, she insinuated that Vanessa was settling. Tyler, 25, behaved like the typical gym addict who boasted about how significant his contribution was to his father's company. Still, I was in love with Vanessa. I thought that once we were married, her family's toxicity would become distant background noise. My best friend Luis, burly, explosive, but loyal to the core, had warned me several times. "I don't know, man. Her mom gives me bad vibes." "Open your eyes," he told me one afternoon while we were eating. I never imagined how right he was. Months before the wedding, Vanessa started asking strange questions. "Who did you have lunch with today?" Or, "Why didn't you answer for 3 hours?" I attributed it to the stress of the preparations, but every time she came back from visiting her parents, she was more tense, as if someone were filling her head with ideas. One Saturday afternoon, I was under the Camaro changing the clutch slave cylinder when I heard her car pull up. I dragged myself out and immediately knew something was wrong. She had a hard gaze and a rigid posture. "We need to talk," she said, without a greeting. I asked her what was going on, and without another word she shoved her phone in my face. They were blurry, poor-quality photos showing someone, me, leaving a diner with a woman. As soon as I saw them, I recognized the moment. "That's Maria," I explained. "We had lunch Tuesday after she dropped off her Accord for a timing belt change." Wrong answer. "Oh, so now you have cozy lunches with clients?" She spat sarcastically. I was about to laugh. "We just talked about parts suppliers. We went to Joe's Diner. Should I also notify you when I talk to the guy at AutoZone?" Her gaze turned icy. "Don't get smart with me. My mother showed me these photos and told me—" "Your mother?" I interrupted her. "So, Gloria got photos taken in secret and is already convinced I'm cheating on you? Protecting you from what exactly? A man who earns his money working?" That was the detonator. Her face turned red with fury. "I don't have to put up with this," she said as she turned to leave. Just then I heard screeching brakes. A Lexus skidded to a stop, almost hitting the workshop entrance, and immediately 3 people descended as if they were a SWAT team. Ray came in first. "You've been disrespecting my daughter," he yelled, pointing at me like I was a criminal. "Playing games with her." "If you want to talk, we'll talk," I replied, "but lower your tone." Tyler stepped forward, puffing out his chest. "Are you calling our father a liar?" "I'm saying your mother gave you false information," I retorted. Ray's face turned purple with rage. "You ungrateful son of a—" He hit me before I could react. I felt the impact directly on my jaw and the metallic taste of blood. Tyler shoved me against the workbench, sending tools flying everywhere. I tried to defend myself and managed to land a punch on his ribs, but Ray grabbed me from behind while Bree filmed the scene with her phone as if it were entertainment. The two of them took turns. Ray threw clumsy punches, but they were full of fury. Tyler knew how to hit and landed 2 direct shots to my ribs. I ended up on the floor trying to cover myself when he kicked my abdomen. The worst part wasn't the beating. The worst part was seeing Vanessa watching in silence, without making a single attempt to stop them. When they finally stopped, Ray was breathing heavily. "If you ever come near my daughter again, I'll bury you," he threatened before leaving. They all left one by one. Vanessa was the last. She looked at me lying there, bloody, as if I were a stranger. "It's over. Consider that I did you a favor," she said before disappearing with the others. I stayed on the floor for a few minutes, checking to see if anything was broken. My lip was split open. 2 ribs felt fractured, and a headache announced a possible concussion. The workshop looked like the scene of a bar fight. The Camaro remained on the stands, a silent witness to the chaos. I got up as best I could and called Luis. "Bro, I need you to come over. I got jumped at the shop." There was silence. "Who?" "Vanessa's family. It's a long story. Can you be here in 5? He arrived in 4. When he saw me, his face completely changed. "Tell me where they live," he spat. "Hospital first," I asked. In the emergency room, the doctor examined me while asking careful questions. I had a split lip that needed stitches, 2 cracked ribs, a mild concussion, and bruises that would stay with me for weeks. "You should file a police report," he warned. "This wasn't a fight. It was assault." Luis, from the corner, only added, "Listen to him. It's the right thing to do." I sat on that gurney while every part of my body burned and my pride was shattered. Part of me wanted to leave everything behind, disappear for a while, and start over somewhere else. But there was another part, deeper and firmer, that knew exactly what had to be done. They came to my workshop, to my own space, and attacked me based on lies they themselves had manufactured. That wasn't just disrespect, it was a declaration of war. And if they wanted conflict, they were about to find out what happens when they provoke the wrong guy. Monday morning felt like I had been run over by a truck. Both my eyes were bruised, my lips were stitched, and every breath reminded me that my ribs were messed up. Luis was the one who drove me to the police station. "Are you really going to do this?" he asked while driving. "Yes," I replied. "These people think they can do whatever they want." Detective Carter saw me walk in, and his expression changed immediately. He ushered me in without delay. I explained everything, the false accusation, the ambush, how they stormed my workshop. He listened in silence, nodding. "Do you have evidence?" he asked. "My workshop has security cameras. It's all recorded." His face completely changed. "Video of a clear attack? Multiple angles? Get me that footage as soon as possible." Luis and I returned to the workshop. It still looked like a disaster zone, tools scattered everywhere, my belongings thrown around, and dried patches of my own blood on the floor. I accessed the security system from the laptop and saved the entire sequence onto a flash drive. Reviewing the images made my blood boil. There was Ray throwing the first punch, Tyler kicking me while I was on the floor, and Vanessa watching it all as if nothing was happening. It was even worse than I remembered. We returned to the station, and I handed the flash drive to Carter. He said he would be in touch soon. On the way back, Luis didn't say a word. When he's quiet, it means his head is working. "What's bothering you?" I asked. "I want to find them and return the favor," he replied through clenched teeth. "Not yet," I told him. "Let justice do its thing first. And if it doesn't," I looked at him, "then we'll do it ourselves." That comment satisfied him. The following week was eternal. Slow days at the workshop, customers discreetly looking at my bruises. I told them I'd had an accident. Everything became monotonous until I received a call from an unknown number. "Henry speaking," a grave voice said, Vanessa's uncle. We had met at Christmas 2 years ago. I vaguely remembered him as a quiet man who avoided family drama. "What do you need?" I asked. "Or rather, what can I do for you?" "I heard what happened. We need to talk somewhere private." We met at a truck stop on the outskirts of Mesa. Henry was already sitting when I arrived. I sat across from him. "What is this about?" I asked. He looked around before leaning forward. "What happened to you wasn't an impulsive outburst. It was planned. Gloria organized everything." My hands clenched into fists. I had figured as much. "Do you have proof?" He pulled out a flash drive and placed it on the table. "Here's everything. Gloria hired a photographer to follow you and take pictures that would look compromising. She gave specific instructions to make them look suspicious. Then she spent weeks filling Vanessa's head with lies about you, supposed infidelities, secret credit cards, anything to help destroy the relationship." "Why would she do something like that?" Henry sighed. "Because you don't meet her standards. Gloria wants Vanessa to marry a wealthy heir, a guy named Bradley. You were an obstacle." I took the flash drive. "What exactly is on here?" "Messages between Gloria and the photographer. Emails detailing the plan. Conversations where she sows doubt in Vanessa. Everything. I made a copy before she could delete it." I was silent, processing every word. And why help me? Henry pressed his lips together. "Because I'm sick of watching Gloria destroy lives for fun. She already ruined Vanessa's previous relationship, and I didn't do anything. I won't repeat that mistake." That night, I went straight to a copy shop and made 3 backups of that flash drive. Then I went home and reviewed it on my laptop. The messages were all there. "Found a photographer who can make anything look compromising. This should be enough for Vanessa to leave him." And more emails to Bradley. "Just a few more weeks. When she's single, you'll have your chance." Messages to Vanessa. "I hate to tell you this, but I saw him with another woman. They looked very close." And so, the endless chain of manipulation continued. By 2 a.m., my anger was almost palpable. I was ready to make them all face the consequences. The next night, Luis came over with pizza and drinks. We ate in silence until he put down his slice and smiled suspiciously. "You're going to laugh at this," he said. "Remember Tyler drives that silver BMW his daddy bought him?" "Yeah." "Why?" "I saw it last night in the gym parking lot. Very late, no one around. I noticed the brakes were a bit worn. I thought I'd check them out of courtesy." "Luis, tell me you didn't do anything serious." "Relax. I didn't cut anything. I just discreetly disconnected the battery cable. I also loosened the serpentine belt so it starts squealing and probably snaps soon. And while I was there, I let the air out of all 4 tires." "You got into his car without breaking anything?" "I used a Slim Jim to open it. Did my thing and left it as it was. Took 10 minutes. He shrugged. "In the end, he'll just have to call a tow truck and fix a few annoyances. Consider it an advance for your hospital visit." I should have told him it was crazy, that he could have been caught. But I found myself smiling. "Are you out of your mind?" I told him. "Yes, and the rich kid needs to learn that actions have consequences. Justice will handle the big stuff. I'm handling the small stuff." He picked up his slice again. "Before you ask, I used gloves, parked my car 3 blocks away, and I know exactly where the gym's camera blind spots are. I checked everything." "Of course you did," I replied. "If you're going to do stupid things, at least do them well." The next morning, I called my lawyer, Jordan. He was a friend's contact, an expert in both criminal defense and civil lawsuits. He sat down to review the contents of the flash drive while I watched his expression go from curious to alarmed. "This is insane," he finally said. "We're no longer just talking about assault. There's conspiracy, fraud, and we could even consider harassment depending on how we present it." "Do they face serious penalties?" I asked. "The mother, definitely. The father and son for assault. The sister might get off if it can't be proven she knew the plan, but she still has charges for participating." He leaned back in his chair. "And Vanessa?" "I don't know. Nor do I care. If she wasn't involved in the planning, she probably doesn't have criminal liability. But in the court of public opinion," he smiled, "she's finished." That same afternoon, I took all the material to Detective Carter. He left his office, reviewing the file once more, as if he wanted to make sure he hadn't overlooked a single line. Then he looked up at me and let out a comment loaded with almost professional satisfaction. "This is practically a gift-wrapped case," he said with an affirmative gesture, like receiving exactly what you expected to find. "Warrants will be issued before the end of the week." "And the trial?" I asked, still feeling some tension in my body. "A couple of months, maybe," he replied, adjusting his glasses. "But with evidence like this, there's no way for them to get out of it. Believe me, I've seen cases with half the evidence, and they still end in conviction." His calmness gave me a sense of relief I hadn't felt in a long time. I left the police station breathing deeply, as if I could finally release a weight I had carried for weeks. That same night, Luis showed up at my house almost unannounced. He brought food, soda, and that attitude of his that says, "We'll solve everything," even when what was coming was a legal conflict. We settled onto the couch, the dim living room light illuminating the papers scattered on the table. It was almost like planning a heist, only the loot was justice, and the final escape was a quiet life. "So, what comes next?" he asked while opening a couple of food containers. "Now we wait for them to panic," I answered without hesitation. And panic they did. It took barely 2 days after I handed everything over to Carter for Ray to call me. His tone was completely different, almost unrecognizable. He was no longer the arrogant guy who stood in my workshop to insult me. "We should resolve this like adults," he said in a voice trying to sound calm. "There's no need to involve the judicial system." "Talk to my lawyer," I replied curtly and hung up without giving him a chance to continue. It wasn't long before Tyler appeared too, this time from an unknown number. He sent me a long text full of empty phrases about protecting the family and how things had gotten out of control. He closed the message by inviting me to an arrangement between men. I screenshotted it and sent it directly to Jordan. "Does this count as evidence?" I asked. "Completely," he replied. "Every attempt at pressure, every insinuation, it all adds up. Keep saving everything they send you." Next, it was Bree who tried to manipulate me. She called me as if we were talking about a minor issue. "Vanessa is devastated," she said. "She truly loves you. Don't you think you're overreacting?" When I showed the message to Luis, he burst out laughing as if he had just heard a ridiculous joke. "Overreacting?" "They left your face unrecognizable. These people live in a parallel universe. The only one who didn't try to contact me was Gloria. And that told me a lot. She probably knew that any move from her would be recorded. I didn't know if it was intelligence or arrogance, possibly a precise mix of both. But Vanessa, she persisted. At first, it was messages from different numbers. Then came the audio clips loaded with crying, and finally, she started showing up wherever I was. One Thursday night, she found me at the supermarket just as I was grabbing some energy drinks. She approached me as if everything that had happened were a simple misunderstanding. "Please, can we talk?" She had red eyes, smeared makeup, and a trembling voice. "I didn't know what my mom was doing. She manipulated me." "You thought wrong," I replied, "and you still stood there watching while they beat me up. This is over. But I love you. You loved the image you had of me until your mom said it wasn't good enough for you. That's when you discarded me without hesitation." Her face crumpled. I simply kept walking, letting her silence fill the aisle. The following weekend, her family moved with evident desperation. Ray's lawyer called Jordan to try for a quick settlement, like someone trying to put out a fire using a glass of water. "My clients are willing to cover medical expenses and offer compensation if Mr. Marcus drops the charges," the lawyer said in a diplomatic voice. Jordan put him on speaker. "How much compensation?" I asked point blank. $50,000, he replied. I laughed without restraint, as if he had told me a bad joke. "Tell them I'm not interested. I'll see them in court." The lawyer attempted one last maneuver, mentioning that everyone loses in a trial, but Jordan cut him off with surgical coldness. "My client has recordings, digital records of the conspiracy, and medical photographs. Your clients are going to prison. The only question is, how many years?" The call ended there. Monday morning, Luis showed up at my workshop with coffee and a look that suggested important news. "I ran into Tyler at the gym last night," he told me, flashing that dangerous smile he gets when he smells conflict. "He tried to provoke me. He got in my face saying you were making a mistake, that his family had lawyers who could destroy you. And what did you do? I asked, my intuition on high alert. I told him his lawyers couldn't beat a direct recording. Then I suggested he worry about looking good for his mugshot, he replied, laughing. He didn't like it. He threw a punch. I felt my whole body tense up. Please tell me you didn't. Relax. I dodged. He ended up punching a mirror. They kicked him out of the place, but listen to this. The gym has cameras. I already filed a police report for attempted assault. I stared at him incredulously. Are you serious? More than ever. These rich people think they can intimidate anyone. It's time they learned otherwise. Jordan was delighted with the news. Another charge, he said. A perfect piece to sink Tyler in front of the jury. Things intensified even more when I noticed a car following me. A black Cadillac, tinted windows, always at a strategic distance. I told Carter, who promised to investigate. 2 days later, the car disappeared, and Carter called me to update me. They traced the vehicle to a private detective agency hired by Gloria. She's looking for anything she can use to discredit you before the trial. Good luck, I replied. I'm not as interesting as she thinks. The investigator who interviewed me seemed to confirm it shortly after. 3 weeks before the trial, Vanessa decided to make one last attempt. She came to my workshop one Wednesday afternoon, ignored the employee at the front, and walked straight to the bay where I was installing new brakes on a Honda. Marcus, I know you don't want to see me, she said. Then why are you here? I replied without looking up. I need you to know I'm sorry. My mom, my dad, they made me believe so many lies. I was an idiot for listening to them. Yes, you were. You can't forgive me? What we had was real. I finally looked at her. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and an air of defeat that contrasted with the confidence she usually had. We had something, I admitted. But you let it die when you chose to trust your mother over me. What we had ended the night you stood there watching while they beat me up as if it were normal. She fell silent. I went back to working on the car. The door is over there. They're going to prison, she whispered. My family is falling apart. They should have thought about that before attacking me. She walked away crying. My employee saw me but didn't say anything. Wise of him. That night, Luis arrived with Chinese food and we sat in my office. While we ate, I reviewed dates, documents, and messages. The trial is in 3 weeks, I said. I'm ready, he replied without hesitation. Perfect. He started opening his fortune cookie and smiled. Because when all this is over, I want authorization to coincidentally run into Tyler at the gym one more time, he joked. I smiled too. Let's see how the trial goes first. And the truth was simple. I didn't need Luis to do anything else. My revenge was already underway, solid and well constructed, and there was no way anyone could stop it. The system was about to take care of it for me, and knowing that those spoiled brats were finally going to find out that they couldn't buy or intimidate their way out of this situation was 1,000 times better than any punch I could have given them. The preparation for the trial swallowed the next 2 weeks. Jordan, my lawyer, called me into his office 3 times to go over my statement. We rehearsed every detail, how to answer, how to stay calm under cross-examination, what to do if they tried to provoke me. You're doing well, the consultant working with him said at the end. Just try not to get arrogant when you're on the stand. Luis accompanied me to one of those sessions. Afterward, we went out to lunch at a small restaurant near my workshop. I'm scared by how calm you are about all this, he commented while stirring his coffee. What do you want me to do? Break down? I replied, shrugging. Most people would, he insisted. Most people haven't spent their 20s building a business from scratch. Work kept me focused. My employee, Ian, handled the front counter while I lost myself in the workshop, fixing cars, concentrating on something I could control. One afternoon, Ian poked his head around the doorway of the work area. Boss, there's a woman at reception, says her name is Gloria. The wrench almost slipped from my hand. "Gloria," I repeated. "Should I tell her you're busy?" Part of me wanted to avoid her at all costs. Another part, however, needed to look directly at the person who had shattered my life. "I'll handle it," I finally replied. Gloria was in the waiting room, observing my modest workshop as if it were beneath her. As soon as she saw me, her expression changed to a grimace that I suppose was meant to look contrite. "We need to talk," she blurted out without even greeting me. "No, we don't need to." "5 minutes, please," she insisted. I crossed my arms. "You have 2. She looked at Ian as if expecting him to leave. "I'd prefer to talk privately." "Anything you have to say," I retorted, "you can say in front of my employee." "Time is ticking." Her jaw tightened. "What happened was a misunderstanding that got out of control," she began. "I was just trying to protect my daughter. I didn't intend for you to be accused of infidelity. I had my concerns. Perhaps I reacted impulsively." I let out a dry laugh. "Ma'am, you hired someone to follow me. You fabricated false evidence, poisoned your daughter against me, and organized a premeditated assault. If you drop the charges," she continued as if she hadn't heard me, "we are willing to offer substantial compensation, enough for you to expand this business." She pronounced the word business as if talking about a corner lemonade stand. "I'm not interested." Her mask dropped in a second. The false concern vanished, and the threat appeared. "You're making a mistake. We have resources, contacts. You're just a mechanic." "Do you really think you can win?" "I don't think so. I know so. I have the truth and the evidence. You only have money and delusions." Gloria's face turned red. "You are going to regret this." "I'm pretty sure that's going to be your future, not mine. Now get out of my workshop before I call the police." She left behind a cloud of expensive perfume and pure rage. Ian let out a low whistle. "That's the witch who started all this?" "The very same," I replied. "And she doesn't have much time left playing powerful." That same afternoon, Jordan called me with an update. "Gloria's lawyer just filed a motion to exclude the evidence Henry provided," he explained. "They are claiming it was obtained illegally." "Can they succeed?" I asked. "No. Henry had legitimate access to those files, and besides, there is no expectation of privacy in text messages within the family group. It's a desperate move. They're scared." "Perfect. Let them be." The night before the trial, I barely slept. The next day, I was going to see with my own eyes how those people, accustomed to walking all over anyone, would have to face real consequences for the first time in their lives. At midnight, the phone vibrated. It was a message from Luis. "You awake?" "Yes. Want company?" "Sure." 20 minutes later, he showed up at my door with takeout. We sat on the couch, eating in silence, without needing to fill the spaces with words. Sometimes friendship is just that. Someone who is there when the noise in your head won't leave you alone. "When all this is over," he said when he finished eating, "we're going to celebrate at that steakhouse you like." My treat. "It's a date," I replied. At 2 a.m., Luis fell asleep on the sofa, and I went to bed. When I woke up a few hours later, I knew I was ready. The Maricopa County Courthouse building looked like any other government building. Large, cold, built to make you feel small. I arrived in my best suit, the same one I had bought for the engagement party. Jordan was waiting for me at the entrance. Impeccable. "Ready?" he asked. "Born ready," I replied, more to give myself courage than anything else. Luis was already seated in the gallery when we entered the courtroom. He gave me a nod, reminding me that I wasn't alone. Ray, Tyler, and Bree were already with their legal team, a famous firm from Scottsdale that surely charged more per hour than I earned in a week of hard work. They all seemed nervous, except Gloria, who remained rigid as if she still believed she controlled the situation. Vanessa was also there, sitting in the back rows. Our eyes met for a second before I looked away. There was nothing left between us worth acknowledging. The jury selection took up almost the entire morning. 12 people whose faces suggested they would rather be anywhere else. Jordan had given me instructions on which profiles might favor our case, but honestly, much of it seemed like pure intuition. In the end, a reasonably balanced group was selected. The prosecutor, Denise, began strongly. She presented the case step by step. The fabricated evidence, Gloria's plan, the planned assault, all backed up with concrete evidence. The defense attorney, a man named Montgomery, with the demeanor of someone who spends more time at a country club than on the street, attempted the protective family approach. "They are good people," he said, "who made an unfortunate mistake in believing they were defending their daughter from a betrayal." Right. Good people who hire private investigators and organize beatings. I was called to testify first. I walked to the stand, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. From that spot, I could see everyone. The attentive jury, Gloria whispering to her lawyer, Vanessa pale as if she were about to faint. Denise guided me through the whole story. How I met Vanessa, the engagement, the manipulated photos of Maria and me. I recounted the ambush, how Ray, Tyler, and Bree arrived at my workshop, how I tried to explain, to calm things down, how Ray's first punch landed, then how Tyler joined in while Bree recorded the scene as if it were a show. "Where was Vanessa during the assault?" Denise asked. "Standing in the entrance, watching," I replied. The prosecutor projected the images from my workshop security cameras onto the courtroom screens. The jury leaned forward to get a better look at the unfolding attack. A couple of them frowned. One woman put her hand to her mouth, clearly shocked by what she was seeing. "These are the injuries you sustained that day," Denise said, displaying photographs of my battered face. Bruises around the eyes, split lip, visible stitches. "Did this require medical attention?" she continued. "Yes, I went to the emergency room. I had fractured ribs, a concussion, and several lacerations." Montgomery's cross-examination was exactly what I had imagined, predictable, with attempts to make me look exaggerated or vindictive, searching for any minimal contradiction. But by then, I was no longer the guy cornered in his own workshop. I was the man who had brought the full truth to that stand, with the law on his side, and the weight of their actions falling upon them for the first time. What I will never forget is how that defense lawyer tried from the first second to transform reality into a convenient fantasy for the Taylor family. He seemed convinced that if he repeated the same distorted story enough times, the jury would eventually believe him. But all he managed to do was look desperate. He began by insinuating that I had provoked everything. According to him, my aggressive tone had been enough to justify 3 people attacking me at once inside my own workshop. "Is it not true," Montgomery said with a false kindness, "that you questioned Mrs. Mao, Taylor's parenting during your discussion with Vanessa?" Inside, I felt anger, but on the outside I remained firm. "I commented that Gloria was manipulating her daughter," I replied, something that, as the messages demonstrate, was completely true. Montgomery moved closer to the jury as if he had just revealed a great secret. "So, you spoke disrespectfully about Mr. Taylor's wife." "I spoke the truth," I countered. "Gloria had been interfering in our relationship for months." He tried to twist my words several times, trying to get me upset or to react with anger. Jordan had warned me that this would be his main tactic, emotional provocation to make me look like the aggressor in the story. I confined myself to following what we had practiced to the letter: calm, facts, no personal attacks. It didn't take long for me to notice a detail that gave me confidence. Every time Montgomery looked for a contradiction and didn't find one, some jury members exchanged glances, as if confirming that my version was stable and coherent. That silent gesture reminded me that for the first time in months, I wasn't fighting alone. When I finished my statement, I felt a slight trembling in my hands that only I could notice. It wasn't fear. It was tension accumulated for too long. Next, Henry took the stand. If anyone could dismantle the entire plot behind the attack, it was him. In a calm voice, he explained how he discovered Gloria's plan. The coordinated messages, the manipulated photographs, the hiring of the photographer who took images from angles designed to sow doubt. Montgomery tried to portray Henry as a resentful relative with a desire for revenge. He even accused him of having old personal conflicts, as if that could invalidate the solid digital evidence he had placed on the table. But Henry didn't flinch. He answered every question clearly, without falling for provocations. The digital expert reinforced everything. He testified that the messages were authentic, unmodified, and that the communication pattern clearly showed a prior conspiracy. Seeing him explain with such precision every file, every metadata, every digital trace, made me feel that the truth was finally undeniable. Then, the doctor who treated me described my injuries in detail. He explained the contusions on my ribs, the damage to my left arm, the marks of multiple blows, and how the distribution was consistent with an attack perpetrated by several people at the same time. Hearing my own pain translated into medical terms was strange, almost like observing a memory of someone else. But it was necessary. Every word shattered a little more of the emotional version Montgomery was trying to sell. Next came Vanessa. When I saw her walk toward the stand, she seemed to have completely crumbled inside. There was no trace left of the confident, cheerful woman I had once imagined building a future with. Prosecutor Denise was direct, without unnecessary theatrics or melodrama. Your mother showed you photographs claiming Marcus was unfaithful. Vanessa lowered her gaze. Yes. And you later discovered it was false? Yes. Did you try to stop your father and brother when they attacked him? Her voice broke. No. There were no excuses. I didn't look for them either. I just wanted things to be said as they were for once. Ray testified next. Unlike his daughter, he remained convinced that he had the right to do what he did. He used words like honor, protection, impulsive error, all said with an air of superiority that only someone accustomed to getting their way could possess. Denise destroyed him without raising her voice. She played the security video where he and Tyler beat me, even when I was trying to back away. Punch after punch, step back after step back. You talk about overwhelming emotions, the prosecutor said calmly. But this video shows repeated, conscious, and directed aggressions. That's not emotion. That's violence. Tyler also tried to sell himself as a protective brother. But his facade crumbled when Denise presented the gym footage where he had tried to hit Luis weeks earlier. That detail, though he minimized it, showed a pattern of aggressive behavior. Bree was almost pathetic. She pretended she had barely been there, that she didn't really understand what was happening. Denise cut her off by showing the recording where she was seen filming everything on her phone without lifting a finger to help. But nothing topped the moment Gloria took the stand. Her attitude spoke louder than her words. She walked as if the courtroom were an annoyance, not a place where she had to give an account. She admitted hiring the photographer. She admitted creating the perfect scenario to deceive her own daughter. And when Denise pressed her, she ended up revealing what truly motivated her: pure classism and prejudice. "He's a mechanic," she spat as if it were an insult. "And you are a convict," Denise replied without flinching. "The jury will evaluate which carries more weight." Everything went silent. No one dared to move. When the closing arguments came, Denise only had to weave together the threads we had all seen: the conspiracy, the manipulation, the violence. Every point was clear, solid. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. It felt like 3 days. When they returned, their decision left no room for doubt. Behind me, I heard Vanessa crying. Ray was too pale to react. Tyler held his head in his hands as if he already knew what was coming. Luis was waiting for me outside, leaning against my truck with his arms crossed and a smile he didn't bother to hide. "And how does it feel?" he asked. "Tell you after the sentencing," I replied. "But it feels good already." 3 weeks later, the final day arrived. The courtroom was completely full. Many people didn't even know the Taylors, but everyone knew that this wealthy, arrogant family was about to face something they couldn't buy or evade. Ray received 18 months. Tyler, 16. Bree, 10. None of them could hide the shock. Gloria was the last. Judge Carver spoke with a severity I had rarely heard in someone so measured. "You designed a plan to destroy an innocent person. You acted with cruelty, classism, and control. 20 months without parole, plus a $5,000 fine in compensation. Gloria's face went from shock to fury in a matter of seconds. Her lawyer had to touch her arm to keep her from speaking. The bailiffs were already approaching. One by one, they were handcuffed. One by one, they left the courtroom. Tyler looked at me, expecting compassion. He found none. When I walked out, Luis gave me a gentle punch on the shoulder. "Let's eat. My treat." We went to a small place near my workshop. Nothing fancy, just good food, the smell of a grill, and an honest atmosphere. Luis ordered everything. We toasted in silence. "To justice," he said. "To consequences," I replied. And as we ate, I thought about what Luis added afterward, laughing between bites. "They're going straight to the county jail. For people like them, that's going to be a very intense lesson." And for the first time in a long time, I smiled genuinely. A complete, honest smile that had nothing to do with revenge, but with relief, closure, and freedom. I won't lie. What came next was like watching a house of cards fall in slow motion. In the weeks following the sentencing, the repercussions spread throughout the city, almost like a fire no one could stop. For many, Gloria's perfect life had been an example of stability, but now it was clear that everything had been sustained only by appearances and Ray's money. Without the two of them out of circulation, the small cracks everyone ignored transformed into huge fissures that no one could disguise anymore. About a month after the sentencing, I received a call from Henry. His tone made me pause. "You might want to know," he told me. "Ray filed for divorce." "What? From jail?" I asked incredulously. "That's right, and that's not all. While reviewing the finances for her legal defense, he discovered that Gloria had been involved with a tennis instructor at the social club for 3 years. And not only that, she spent about $200,000 of his money on the guy." I let out a laugh I couldn't contain. "Are you serious?" "Completely. The irony is that she accused you of being unfaithful when she was the one betraying him. And now, Ray is going for everything in the divorce. The house, the cars, and even the reputation she defended as if it were her crown." As I listened, I imagined Gloria facing the world without the image of superiority she cultivated for years. Henry continued. "That's not all. Vanessa lost her job. The law firm didn't want to deal with the bad publicity, and since the family house is going to be sold for the divorce, she doesn't know where to move. I, on the other hand, was doing great. Business at the workshop was better than ever. People started seeking me out specifically. Almost as if becoming the guy who wouldn't let himself be crushed by rich, abusive people had made me a local legend. Many customers told me they respected someone who set boundaries, even when it was against people with money and a family name. The compensation also arrived. About 6 weeks after the sentencing, the $5,000 Gloria owed me was deposited into my account. I used half to modernize the workshop's machinery. I invested a portion in secure funds and donated the rest to a dog shelter. Meanwhile, Luis, who had good contacts, kept me informed about how things were going for them in jail. Not well. According to his reports, Ray had an altercation with another inmate and ended up in the infirmary for a whole week. Tyler, with his tough guy attitude, quickly learned he wasn't so intimidating in there. Bree was practically in isolation because she couldn't tolerate the general population, and Gloria was learning the hard way that money and status meant nothing behind bars. 3 months after the sentencing, I ran into Maria at a coffee shop. Everything had started with her innocent lunch, that cursed day when Gloria's family decided to turn their insecurity into my nightmare. "I heard what happened," she told me with genuine regret. "I'm sorry I was part of the trigger." "You didn't cause anything," I replied. "Unstable people decided to use your presence as an excuse. You were just there." We talked for a while. She was funny, sensible, and to my surprise, single. I took her number and we started seeing each other for coffee from time to time. We weren't looking for anything serious at first, just company, without family drama. Luis didn't take long to deliver his verdict. "She seems normal, like really normal. That's a huge improvement after Vanessa." And he was right. During that same period, I adopted a dog, a German shepherd I named Toji. I needed company, and it was also the perfect excuse to go out more, walk in parks, and meet new people. 6 months later, a letter arrived from prison. At first, I thought about throwing it away unopened, but curiosity won. It was from Vanessa. 2 pages full of explanations, apologies, confessions about how she had been manipulated all her life. She said she was in therapy, learning to think for herself, and that she understood if I didn't want to forgive her, but she hoped I was at least doing better. I read it once, then threw it into the metal barrel behind the workshop and burned it. Some things don't deserve to occupy space in your mind. The Camaro was finished shortly after. I spent several weekends cruising around Phoenix, attending car shows, meeting new people who valued who I was, not what they could get from me or my circle. At one of those shows in Tempe, I saw Bree. She had been released before serving the full year for good behavior. She was wearing second-hand clothes, looking like a different person. When she saw me, she froze for an instant. Then she turned around and walked in the opposite direction. Sensible, finally. She was learning. About 2 years after the sentencing, Henry invited me to dinner. He wanted to update me on what he knew. "They're all out now," he informed me. "Gloria finished her full 20-month sentence a few months ago. Ray and Tyler got parole." "And how are they doing on the outside?" I asked. "Not well," he replied. "Ray divorced her and got everything. Gloria's living in a tiny studio in a rough area of Tempe. She works at a call center, and her friends vanished. Tyler has been out for almost a year, moving between warehouse jobs, and Bree is still working retail, trying to pay off her debts. They've all fallen from that luxurious life they defended so much." I nodded as I processed the information. They had built that fall brick by brick, each decision pushing them a little further toward the bottom. For a moment, I remained silent, letting the weight of all that history settle, not out of sadness, but from a kind of strange clarity that only comes when you view everything you survived with perspective. "Do you really not have an ounce of compassion left for them?" Henry insisted, as if he needed confirmation. I replied calmly, "Compassion is for those who try to correct their path, not for those who use their power to crush others. Every one of them had opportunities to do the right thing, and they chose to ignore them. This is consequence, not tragedy." Henry leaned back in his seat, looking at me with a mix of pride and relief. "I'm glad you are where you are," he said. "Most people would have let all this destroy them." "It made me stronger," I countered, "and more careful about the people I let in." We finished dinner and left the restaurant. The night air was fresh with that smell of asphalt and wood smoke that always accompanies the outskirts of the city. As I walked toward my car, I thought about everything that had changed since that day in the workshop when Gloria's family decided to turn their insecurities into my problem. The workshop was now better than ever. I had more employees, better equipment, and projects that I once only saw as distant goals. People came recommended, drawn by the story, yes, but also because they knew I did my job with integrity. I had achieved something they never could, building a stable life without building it on lies. Things with Maria were growing naturally. There was no rush, no masks, no constant tension, just real conversations, simple laughs, and a companionship that didn't need excessive demonstrations to feel genuine. She brought no drama, no secrets, no past designed to manipulate. She accepted me. Luis, as always, kept showing up at the workshop unannounced, dropping acid comments about anyone he disliked, ready to defend me even in battles I had no intention of fighting. It was his way of showing affection, aggressive, but affection nonetheless. Over time, I heard more details about the former protagonists of my torment. Gloria continued trying to clean up her image, patching things where there was nothing left to repair. Most people avoided her, and her name had become linked to her public downfall. Vanessa, for her part, tried to maintain distance and rebuild in her own way. For the first time in her life, she was learning to set boundaries. Ray had become embittered, resentful that the world no longer responded to his whims. Tyler moved slowly, trying not to sink again. Bree accumulated double shifts, trying to catch up on everything she owed. I observed all that from afar. with no desire to intervene. I had released the need to understand them, justify them, or punish them. They were no longer part of my life or my energy. One afternoon, while playing with Toji in the park, something simple yet powerful dawned on me. I didn't need their downfall to feel good. What had truly uplifted me was seeing my dignity, my space, and my peace recovered. They lived surrounded by consequences. I was surrounded by peace. And in that contrast, I understood the true difference between revenge and justice. Revenge demands that the other person suffer. Justice only requires that everyone bear what they have sown. And I was finally harvesting something better,